Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're dissecting a massive, classic framework, Blue Ocean Strategy. But here's the thing, we're going to treat this as way more than just a corporate whiteboard exercise. In the UpGoWise practice of self-mastery, this is about intellectual refinement. Because too often, we mistake mere motion for actual strategy. We compare, we copy, we improve things slightly, and we completely exhaust ourselves inside a market logic that we never consciously chose to enter in the first place. This explainer is going to teach you how to see the frame you're currently operating in, not just the fight happening inside of it.
Who taught you to trust a crowded room? Seriously, think about that for a second. It's a harsh reality slap, but we need it. We so often call it discipline when we obsessively benchmark our rivals. But if we're brutally honest with ourselves, the mechanism there is usually just mimicry dressed up as high standards. We feel highly productive because our calendar is absolutely full, and we're moving incredibly fast. But your body knows the truth, right? Your body knows you have no true north. We're totally directionless. So this is about stopping that exhausting cycle of optimizing a congestion that you never even chose.
Okay, let's dive into this. W. Chan Kim and Renee Malbergorn, the brilliant authors behind Blue Ocean Strategy, hit us with this. The only way to beat the competition is to stop trying to beat the competition. And look, this isn't just some catchy bumper sticker slogan about being different just for the sake of it. Being different without providing actual value, that's just decoration. Instead, Kim and Malbergorn are handing us a very sharp blade against crowded, lazy thinking. They're asking us, why on earth do we insist on fighting where the map is already rigged? This entire concept is about disciplined reconstruction. It's about stripping away the borrowed fear that we've internalized from watching everyone else.
Section 1. The Crowded Room Trap. Escaping the Snarl.
Think of your standard strategic motion like a city planner who is completely obsessed with managing traffic on ancient, winding, narrow streets. Below the window, those old streets are locked into noise. You've got horns pressing against stone, people move an inch, then stop, then move again. That is exactly what a crowded market feels like. It looks like proof that you're in the right place simply because everyone else is there. But actually, it is a trap. To escape it, we need a massive cognitive shift. And this brilliantly illustrates the exact difference in mindsets we need. The old paradigm constantly asks how to win here. It just assumes the boundaries are fixed and you simply have to punch harder than the person standing next to you. But the new paradigm, it asks a much more dangerous question. Why here? It forces you to question the intentional architecture of the market itself. It strips the status right out of mere effort and demands that you find a truly meaningful direction.
Moving into Section 2, Strategy Canvas as X-ray, Diagnosing Obedience.
So, to redraw the map, we first have to fully understand the one we're currently trapped on. And here's the insidious thing. Directionless people rarely look lazy. In fact, they look incredibly devoted. They attend all the calls, they copy the best practices, they sound incredibly sharp in all those meetings. But we need a tool to see if all that frantic effort is actually going anywhere. We do this through the strategy canvas. Now, in this explainer, we aren't just using it as some standard, boring business chart. We are using it as a psychological scan. A value curve is not just market data, it is a confession. It reveals the industry norms, the metrics, and the fears you have literally been trained to worship. When you plot out the exact factors your field competes on, your hidden obedience instantly appears on the page. You can physically see exactly where you are overserving your market simply because your rivals are doing it too.
Now, this kind of blind benchmarking comes with heavy physical costs. You end up just repeating quarters. You're constantly using borrowed language that doesn't actually mean anything real. You have this thin layer of pride that is actively hiding underlying panic. And ultimately, what you get is sheer exhaustion disguised as strategy. Motion without architecture gives the body a false pulse. Your hands are moving faster than your mind, leaving you feeling incredibly busy but totally unmoored from reality.
Section 3, Reconstructing Buyer Value Beyond Romance. Once we've diagnosed the illness, we can finally apply the cure. But we have to be brutally practical here. Innovation without actual utility and a viable cost structure, that's just a romantic fantasy you're pitching to yourself. It's novelty acting as courage. And in the UpGoWise philosophy, we aren't here to build private fantasies. We are here to build undeniable economic reality. So the crucial point is this core concept, value innovation. It is a simultaneous shift. You are not choosing between being the absolute cheapest or being the most unique. The old model constantly forces that false trade-off. Value innovation shatters it by aligning utility, price, cost, and adoption all at once. When you get this strategic sequence exactly right, the new curve you create becomes economically believable. It literally makes the old contest completely obsolete.
Section 4. The Discipline of Subtraction, the ERR secret. So how do we physically reconstruct that value? Well, it happens through the absolute discipline of subtraction. It requires starting with a completely blank page and having the immense courage to subtract, not just accumulate. You see, our old instinct is always to add, right? Add features, add effort, add proof. We confuse accumulation with clarity, but true strategic design begins by clearing the room. This right here is the ERRC grid. It's 4 plain, simple verbs that cut entirely through the fog and force real truth onto a single page. First, eliminate. Just remove the pride metrics your industry hoards but buyers don't actually care about. Second, reduce. Lower those inherited pressures that buyers have merely learned to tolerate. Third, raise. Elevate those deeply undervalued needs. And finally, create. Introduce a totally new basis of choice. If you don't actively use this framework to subtract, you are just going to keep carrying around the market's heavy, outdated furniture forever.
Let's move to Section 5 and see how this builds. Learning from non-customers, the missing map.
Okay, existing customers are fantastic for refinement. They teach you exactly how to polish the old room you're already sitting in. But if you only listen to the people who have already accepted the old rules, you will completely miss where the future is heading. We need to shift our focus entirely to non-customers, the people standing outside your current demand. And what is absolutely fascinating is that their refusal to engage with your field is usually perfectly rational. They aren't confused at all. They just see friction that you have become completely blind to. So while your current loyal room might actually be a cage keeping you trapped, the rational refusal of these outsiders provides the absolute cleanest clues for where the market boundaries are about to shift. Existing customers polish the room, but non-customers show you exactly where the locked doors are.
So how do we actually unlock those doors? We take 3 exact steps to learn from these outsiders. Step 1, study their refusal. Why do they actively, consciously say no? Step 2, study their indifference. Why do they simply not care at all about what your industry obsessively worships? And step 3, study their workarounds. What painful, cobbled-together, duct-tape solutions are they using right now just to avoid your field entirely? When you genuinely understand these 3 things, it hits you. Avoiding your market isn't ignorance on their part. It's a perfectly rational response to a heavily flawed value curve.
To systematically study this boundary shifting, we use what's called the 6 paths framework. You deliberately look across alternatives, across buyer groups, across complementary services, functional versus emotional appeal, across time, and the entire chain of use. This acts as a highly effective tool to just redraw market boundaries. It makes you ask quietly, who made the current boundaries sacred in the first place? A border on a map can feel completely undeniably permanent, right up until the exact moment someone has the courage to survey the land again. This framework breaks that category hypnosis.
And this brings our entire overarching metaphor home. The architect does not curse traffic. She redraws flow on blank vellum. Think about it. When the streets are snarled and loud and chaotic, the master architect doesn't go down into the street and start frantically directing cars. She lays a completely blank piece of vellum over the city plan. She slows down, she draws a new walking path, a new entrance. She changes the city because she changes the flow. I am asking you to be that architect. Stop optimizing the congestion. Use the blank vellum of the strategy canvas to draw a brand new path of value entirely from scratch.
Which brings us to our final, stark cognitive signature to leave you with. Competition is not the compass. It is useful information, absolutely for sure, but it is not your identity, and it definitely shouldn't dictate your direction. We need to stop treating comparison as safety. Let total silence judge your newly designed value curve before you ever seek the applause of a crowded room. So the question is, are you ready to stop competing by default and start designing by choice? Access your personal growth map and continue the internal transformation by deep diving this philosophy over at upgowise.com. See you there.